Here we go. Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Monday, June 20th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting a work session on the Inclusive Dubuque Quarterly Update.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for June 20th, 2022. As a reminder to viewers and listeners, due to the nature of tonight's meeting topic, public input is not accepted. However, you may contact the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/council-contacts. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
And City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Thank you. Our work session topic is the Inclusive Dubuque Quarterly Update. I will turn it over to Equity Coordinator Clara Lopez Ortiz of the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque.
And Clara, as you get ready, you can lower that too if you want. The whole podium goes down if you want to.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think
your
I'm
call.
good. Good evening, Mayor, City Council member, City Manager, and staff. My name is, My name is Clara Lopez Ortiz, and I am the Equity Coordinator for the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. I'm here with Alex Baum, Director of Community Initiatives, and we are here to talk about Inclusive Dubuque. I would first like to thank you for your support of the Inclusive Dubuque program and the opportunity to provide an update on our work. I would like to refresh your memory on what our vision and values are. The Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque envisions a vibrant and inclusive Greater Dubuque region with resources and opportunities for all. We value equity and opportunity, collaboration, stewardship, and knowledge. Under our value of equity and opportunity is Inclusive Dubuque, which is a diverse group of partners who work together to drive transformational change, foster a culture of inclusion, and advance equity in all areas of community life. I would like to talk firstly about our Inclusive Dubuque Network partner meetings. We've had one recently where we had local minority-owned small business owners come and join us for a panel discussion. The panel consisted of those business owners on the upper right corner. They are great people, great business leaders, and people who I can call my friends. The topic was talking about the intersection between business leadership and identity. As we all know, the pandemic hit our businesses pretty hard, and especially our minority-owned businesses. So we wanted to provide a platform for them to come to speak their mind and to also connect with our community members. And of course, since this was our first meeting back in person, it was a time to rejoice and to come together. So we provided some delicious food from a local minority-owned business, which is Franny's Barbecue, which I have heard is really good, and it was really good. I've gone a few times. So you can see there, we had great input from everybody. There was laughing, there was crying, but at the end of the day, I think we all felt like we were connected. Okay. I also want to talk about our Business Leader Equity Cohort. As you know, that is an ongoing group of C-suite level executives and community leaders. We worked in our last session on a DEI scorecard, which helps businesses identify where they have some opportunities and some successes in their DEI work, because we want to provide a space for business leaders to come together and learn along the way, as long as create actionable items to advance equity and inclusion within our community. We actually worked on a list of DEI in the workplace programs, And so we dedicated a few of our meetings, and we actually identified over 70 programs that are here in Dubuque, both internally and externally within these businesses. So as you can see, there is a lot going on in Dubuque, and now we are working to see where we can help support these programs, connect them, or be connected is the main thing. So as we work towards actionable items, we'll be looking at this list. Also, we have the Employer Inclusion Council, which is a newer group, and it stemmed from the Business Leader Equity Cohort. It is more of an action network building bridges among leaders and community members. It is fairly new, but here you can find members who are in HR or middle that are connected both to the CEO and to the workers. So we have worked on establishing leadership. We've only had 2 meetings so far. So we're working on establishing leadership and prioritizing efforts. And so far, we've seen great turnout, and I look forward to more of our meetings and how we can support the Business Leader Equity Cohort. A Rural Equity Network. Last time I came here with the idea of creating this network to connect us with the rural communities that are surrounding Dubuque, because they actually reached out to the Community Foundation asking us, hey, what can we do in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion? There's not much out here. We're reaching out to you. And so we have had 4 meetings so far. And one of them, we had a panel discussion that talked about the role schools play in making communities more inclusive. As you know, schools are one of the first touch points for many families that move into a community, and we had a few school professionals come and talk about their role, not only as teachers, but as connectors and the extra effort they put into being connected with their students. We also had Jim Jelinski from the Restorative Strategies program come and talk to us about what it is and how it is focused on middle and high school age youth. And it's a collaboration among different entities, and it is focused on accountability, reparation, reconciliation, and ultimately reintegration with the community. So it has helped those students that you would consider to be troubled, and how they can be reintegrated both in their school and the community, and how it's seen great results, and how some of those students have turned out to be great students at the end of the day. They just needed to go through this. We also help sponsor the Julian Dubuque International Film Festival closing film, One Pint at a Time. And this film is about Black brewers, brand owners, and influencers reshaping the future of America's favorite adult beverage, which is beer. And you might ask why this film, but it talks, again, the focus on what it means to be a minority business owner, especially in the brewing industry, because less than 1% of all brewers are people of color. And of course, here in Dubuque, we do not have any. So we helped sponsor this film. We had a panel discussion with the director and some of those business owners that were in the film. So we were very lucky to have them come all the way from the South, I believe, maybe. And great discussion about our business owners here and the struggle, as well as they're going through getting over the pandemic and making their business shine. We also had an after event where we actually invited local minority-owned food vendors. We had there to celebrate, and local brewers, because we wanted the conversation to continue as we celebrate with food and beer. We also had live music, so I hope some of you were able to attend, and we look forward for the next year. And next, I will have Alex Baum here talk about more equity programs.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. In addition to the work that Inclusive Dubuque is directly doing, its direct programming, it's really a guiding force for a lot of what we try to do in the Community Foundation, specifically reaching out to underserved communities and trying to have that DEI aspect be a focus of our other programs. So I wanted to come and just give you a little bit of an update on some of the other work that we are doing and specifically how it connects to that DEI aspect. So I want to talk about two things, the first of which is a brain health needs assessment that we are conducting currently in partnership with Dubuque County. And it's looking at what is the current landscape, what are the needs within our community around brain health. The report is still being finalized, but as a bit of a sneak peek, I wanted to talk about how one of the findings was a significant lack of resources and counselors focused at those underserved communities. Specifically called out in the report were BIPOC communities, communities of color, non-English speakers, and the LGBTQ plus community. The lack of counselors and the lack of resources can be a very imposing barrier for a lot of people when it comes specifically to brain health counseling. That being able to identify with and engage with the other person in that relationship, that counseling relationship, can be very important. And we unfortunately have a lack of resources here that's able to fill that gap. I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about non-English speakers as well, because in addition to this, as part of the work I've been doing on an immigration needs assessment, I've reached out and had some conversations with people around the state, most specifically Dr. Naomi Ford at the Iowa Refugee Counseling Center in Iowa City, about the use of translators in counseling services. If you're going to be able to provide brain health counseling to somebody who is not English speaking, you either need a counselor who speaks that language, which can be a big barrier, or you need an interpreter. One of the big challenges here, though, is that interpreting for brain health counseling is not like interpreting in other professions. It is an intensely personal relationship. It almost becomes a three-way counseling session, is what I've been told, where the interpreter is privy to a lot of personal details, is a part of the healing, and needs to be very involved for the long-term effort. For that to happen, it doesn't work to just invite somebody to the community to come interpret, or even to have somebody with special interpretation training. They really need to have an individual who has provided specialized training in counseling interpretation is really the best practice approach, because it allows that person to become involved in the counseling session to a much deeper level. We don't have that in our community, but there are some resources and there are some opportunities to hopefully recreate some of that process and maybe get some of that training in here. I view that as a potential area that we may be able to grow in the future as our community. The second area that I wanted to talk to you about is around early childhood reading, and specifically childhood reading proficiency. So I think all of you here know that the pandemic was impacted a lot of people, but it had a significant impact on our students, and especially our young students. The setback that took place with the pandemic, despite the most valiant efforts of our schools in the community, created a lot of challenges, and I think that was reflected in some of the reading proficiency scores that we saw within our community. And I want to speak specifically about how that has impacted some of our underserved communities. If you look up at the chart on the screen, at the end of the 2021 school year, according to the Iowa School Performance.gov metrics, 70% of our Black and African American students were not at grade level reading proficiency. And it was 88% of our Pacific Islander students, and then 55% of students who are considered low socioeconomic status. So that's over 50% of students not meeting those benchmark proficiencies. I know that there has been a huge amount of emphasis in the school district specifically on trying to bring this back, and there's been a lot of great progress. But part of the realization that we've had is that this really needs to be a community effort, right? These kind of damages to people's opportunity, to these young people's opportunities to learn and to improve their reading comprehension specifically, that doesn't get fixed overnight. It really takes a concerted group effort to try to bring that around. And so we're going to try to be doing some programming from the Community Foundation specifically. A big push that we have is regarding summer learning, where we feel that the summer slide, what happens to students when they're out of school, on vacation, and maybe not getting that regular reading proficiency and that reading practice, evidence shows that that can really set students back compared to some of their peers, especially when you're talking about low-income students. So that's an area that we want to focus on over the next 3 years and try to bring that up so that we can hopefully return these numbers to where they were pre-pandemic, if not improve upon them from there. And so now I want to turn it back to Claire, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the future areas, efforts around Inclusive Dubuque.
Okay. Looking to the future for Inclusive Dubuque, we have the community equity profile starting this year. As you know, in 2015, the foundation did a community equity profile to better understand the systems that prevent people from accessing opportunities in the community. So starting in August, we will be starting this, and each month, we will gather and release local and census data, host an expert panel at the beginning of each month, conduct an electronic survey, host listening sessions, and distribute a snapshot of our findings throughout the months. We are focused on 7 topics: economic wellness, housing, education, health, safe neighborhoods, transportation, and arts and culture. Each month will be focused on a topic. Starting in August, we will have an organization to help us provide advanced training for facilitators, because it is an extensive number of qualitative data, which is community conversations that will be going on. So very busy 7 months to come. And we're looking forward to that, to see what new information we find and how the past community equity profile will be updated, and see what things have changed and what things have not changed. And we will also have an Inclusive Dubuque network meeting coming up on June 28th at 5:30 at the McCarthy Center at the foundation. And we will have guest speaker Tommy Ross. He has over 20 years of experience in the DEI sector. So I'm looking forward to his conversation. And he will guide a thoughtful, interactive, and meaningful discussion that tackles the transformative concept of equity in a relevant, real-world way. So if you can join us, we'd be happy to have you. And that will be all from me. Thank you so much. And if there's any questions, let us know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Clara and Alex. We really appreciate that. So, open it up for questions. I have a couple. Do you have any? Mr. Stout, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for this important work that really raises the quality of life for so many people in our community. I just wanted to say that I was really impressed with the 70 programs that you identified in the business leader equity cohort. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what kinds of programs those might be and how you might be moving forward?
Yes, actually, yeah, we were very surprised, especially because our BIS cohort has a bit, maybe around 40 to 50 active members. So there is still many that we are missing, and just with them, we had over 70. And these are focused, like, we have some on college students, what sort of programs are out there, and how there's maybe some internship programs, but also internal work that these businesses are doing and that we don't know about, but they're actually working to make it a better working place. And moving forward, we're just gonna look at what we have and see where the business leader equity cohort can help either connect or support some of these programs, because we don't want, as you can see, there's many, so we do not want to reinvent the wheel and create something that is already there.
And if I can just add in, one of the things that excites me about this is the diversity of some of these DEI options. Some of them are very established, engaging operations like Opportunity Dubuque or some of those other programs that we really know. And some are internal efforts that may not be as publicly visible, but when you talk about business leaders coming together and sharing best practices and being able to operate as peer mentors to each other, being able to pull out all of these programs and say, yes, there is somebody who is doing this work. Yes, there is somebody who you can turn to. That's has a lot of exciting potential for us.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Barbara.
Yeah, so Alex, another question related to your comment about the brain health area, and you said that there's a lack of resources and counselors, and then, of course, your very helpful explanation about the counselors that were actually really counseling interpreters, if you will. So what you impressed me on, thus my question, was lack of resources. Could you better define what it is that you think we as a community need in order to get this phase of the program started or improved?
Sure. Well, so I'm there. The needs assessment itself is going to come out, and I hope that provides a much fuller view about all of the different areas where we may be able to fill gaps. I think one of the things that a lot of us recognize is there are significant wait times for counseling right now. It can range from 1 month to up to 6 months in order to be able to get a counseling session, and it's just from a lack of counselors, a lack of staff, a lack of resources. There is a lot of need out there that's not necessarily being addressed in a prompt manner. I know I was talking to one organization about possibly getting connected on different referral networks and getting more referrals, and they said, we don't want more referrals. We have a backlog of months and months. I don't know what we would do if more people reached out to us and we just had to deny them because we don't have space. So I think at a basic level, that's one point. But when you're talking specifically about these diverse groups that we're looking at, because brain health counseling is such a personal area, my understanding and what has been revealed through the needs assessment is being able to match that diversity within the counseling space is a really, really valuable asset. And I think it's something that we could do a lot more to build within our community. Speaking specifically about the immigration piece, I think that there would be some very good opportunities to be able to bring in training from other parts of the state. To be clear, there's not a lot of communities in Iowa that are able to do this really effectively. But I think if we can bring in training both for counselors so that they understand how to work with an interpreter, but also for interpreters themselves, we might be able to build a capacity in here in Dubuque that, frankly, most places in Iowa really struggle with.
Thank you.
Does that help answer the question?
Kind of does. I just didn't know where all the counselors were coming from and where all the resources were coming from, but it sounds like your study will provide some more information.
Yes, hopefully it will provide a little bit more of an overview. I think it is a challenge throughout our community and throughout a lot of the state.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's just a dearth of counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists as well. So thank you very much for this project. Thank you.
Ms. Farber? I have a couple of questions. So the first is, I think, my more important question. How do we know if Inclusive Dubuque is moving the needle? How do we know, what can you tell us about the results of your work so far, and how do you know that what you're doing is working? How are you measuring that?
Do you want to? It's an incredibly challenging question when you talk about specifically quantitative data and being able to look at that. One of the reasons we're really excited about the community equity profile, which we're partnering very closely with the Office of Shared Prosperity and Neighborhood Support on, as well as some other city departments, is being able to gain some of that data and some of that quantitative data, feedback from people. How does Dubuque feel different now than it did back in 2015 when we originally conducted the assessment. Being able to return to people and ask people within the community what they think, that can be very powerful. I do know anecdotally that we have heard responses, specifically Clara has heard from the March meeting and from when Inclusive Dubuque sponsored the I Am a Man series of speeches at the Art Museum, that people were coming forward and saying, I don't feel like I've had this opportunity to speak before and to have voices heard. That's good feedback, but again, is that everybody in the community? Does everybody feel that way? An additional area that Project Hope has considered, which we're going to talk about at a future council meeting, hopefully, is their opportunity for something like an equity index for the city, more quantitative measurements that we can kind of hold ourselves accountable to and say, how have we been moving the needle? How have we been progressing in these different areas? But it's I'll admit, it's a very challenging thing to try to measure how much more inclusive a space is.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I know it's a challenge that's happening across the world, but especially here in the United States, trying to measure the work that's being done to make ourselves more equitable in some way. My second question, and then I think we'll be ready to wrap up. The school reading proficiency that you showed us, that 55% number, I mean, that's jarring. Is that a unique problem to Dubuque, or is that similar to what we've seen across Iowa or other places similar to us?
So I will say that reading proficiency scores have been hurt across Iowa, and I think really across the nation. Mm-hmm. The fact that there were so many students who were out of school for a long time, but then also who were trying to adjust to remote school was exceedingly challenging. I know that I heard stories about our Marshallese population, and the difficulties they had adjusting to that really set many of the students back. So I think it is a statewide problem that is being seen. But I think that there are aspects of the problem that may be unique to Dubuque and that we should really consider and look at very closely and say, how can we improve outreach and parent engagement for some of these communities so that this isn't just the school district's problem, right? How do we make this a community effort in order to build these kids' reading proficiency scores back up? Because I don't think we know what the consequences are at this point. It may be years down the line when we start seeing the ramifications that this could have on the job market, high school graduation, health equity, whatever else it might be. Mm-hmm. But yes, so to answer your question, it is something that's being seen around Iowa.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you very much for all this information and for staying to answer some questions of ours. And we'll take a recess here for about a minute or two and then start up with our regular meeting. But there being no further business in this work session, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.